Uh, I think that I don't think there's any question that a great part of why more people don't gravitate toward this is cognitive dissonance, that kind of thing that we talked about, and fear, the exact type of thing that you're talking about. You know, it maybe at times it's not so much to try to get people to notice this is happening as it is to get people not to fear things in their own lives. You know, people fear everything. It's not just chemtrails. They fear speaking in front of crowds. You know, I've seen stats before where, you know, people fear giving speeches in front of groups of people more than they do fear death. You know, so you come to understand, you know, there's certain elements of fear that everybody has that is more internalized than it is externalized, right? So does that make sense? What are your thoughts on something like that? We try, you know, so many people talk about, God, it's so frustrating to try to tell people what's going on and say, hey, don't you see the lines in the sky? You know, maybe they're so worried about other things and scared, right?
Yeah.
Maybe there are other ways to approach this, because, Russ, you're hitting the nail on the head. I have to say I thrive listening to you, and especially you with somebody like Dane Wigington, because the concept is that this is no longer a something that we can sort of dabble in to try to figure out what the solution is. You know, this is it is so serious that people are dying from it, and if that doesn't present a sense of urgency for all of us to recognize that and say, I have to figure out what the frick I can do about this, then nothing will do that for people. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, I love these kind of profound discussions we get in after these talks. Sometimes I wish I could hang around longer, but usually I haven't eaten and I'm starving and I wasn't prepared to begin with, so it's crazy. But you know, but I will say this is that there are two motivators in human life, and it's fear and love. And these are the two modes that we operate in our life. If we operate in a mode of love, then we don't need fear. There's no need for fear. And if we operate in a mode of fear, it's because we have failed to love. And I'm not saying that these are absolute truths, because there are situations where these things arise. But let me give an example. This is not an absolute truth, but it's a principle. So, so the thing that is important in all this is that the way that life works is that if you, for instance, if you have wisdom and you say, well, I see a cliff in front of me, I am going to stop running forward, then you don't have to experience the fall. But if you do not exude wisdom and you keep running, and usually the reason people keep running is because of fear, and that fear is taught to you by mainstream media. Like, let me just go down one of my favorite examples of one of the most fear-teaching shows I've ever seen on television was the show Friends. And in this, I know when I say this, people are probably like, what are you talking about? But if you understand something about how people work, you can see that shows like this teach you that the scariest thing that can ever happen to you is to be separated, to be alone, to be isolated from other people. And so what that does is it creates a culture of fear that is much more easily controllable. People who are in fear are controllable. People who are not in fear are not controllable. And this is why everything in our culture promotes fear. Shows like this promote the idea that if you don't go along with the crowd, then you will be isolated and alone. It's the most miserable thing you'll ever experience. And the reason, the effectiveness that we can see as a result of all of these years and years of conditioning on the public are these experiments that we've seen where children are in a classroom and the teacher draws a red circle on the chalkboard and says, there's a blue circle. And it takes 2, 3, 5 minutes before the first child has the faith or the strength to stand up and say, no, that's a blue circle. It's not or it's a red circle. It's not a blue circle, because these children by that age are so conditioned already. You can watch Saturday morning television, and these psychological mechanisms are built in already, teaching them that you better not go against the crowd. But the funny thing is that when you watch the show, if you're not aware of the psychological mechanisms, and this is absolutely brilliant, this is why the deception is so brilliant. It looks like on the surface that the message is saying, don't follow the crowd. Be your own self. Be independent. That's what it looks like they're saying. But woven throughout the fabric of that so-called message is the exact opposite message. It says, you better not do it. You better not do it too much. If you're going to be independent, just make sure you don't isolate your friends. And that creates a culture of fear, which is controllable, which makes people not willing to look at truth, which is exactly why they promote it. And the reason why we're living in a time when evil is winning, they're not going to win the ultimate war, but the reason they're winning the battles is because they know how people work better than people know how they work themselves. And they've used that knowledge, they've used that technology to condition the public to be so afraid of standing out, standing up, that they have created a culture that has become easy to control. It wasn't a couple hundred years ago you had forefathers in this country who were saying things that today sound so offensive to so much of the population. Things like, you have the right to privacy. If a police officer, and I have nothing against police, and I don't condone violence, but if they come and knock down your door and they come and search your house, and there's no evidence that you've done, there's no evidence that you've done anything wrong, and this kind of stuff happens a lot. This is absolute affront. This is just repugnant to the basic premise of freedom. Yet today, if that happens, there's no lawsuit, there's no backlash, there's no jobs lost. People are promoted instead of demoted or fired. And it's the exact opposite reaction that you would expect, because people have been conditioned to believe that the right response is a fearful response. When you see a public official not acting right, the people should have the strength of character to say, you're wrong. You are incorrect in what you're doing. You're improper. You're acting unlawfully. And we should also have the faith to believe people like me, who come into the public realm, who do not want to be here, because I don't want to be here. I don't want to be doing this. I have no desire to be on internet radio. This is the last thing I ever thought I would be doing. And what it does, the way that this happens, is that they create a mentality, an emotionally based culture of fear, so that people become isolated from each other instead of getting together, which is why Zbigniew Brzezinski actually said he regretted that they had, quote unquote, created the internet, because it really brought people together. And guess what? So many of these people wouldn't know about the harm being done by vaccines or amalgam fillings if it weren't for the internet, when people start coming together. So the key is to divide and conquer, and fear is what divides people, and love is what brings people together. And so by promoting this attitude of fear, people like me come into the public eye, and I have something unique to bring. It's kind of unique. I shouldn't say it's not very unique, but it's kind of unique, because I have a sensitive sense of taste and smell. And because I do, I have an absolute obligation, a moral obligation, to tell the public there is something very toxic in the air. It smells like metal, or it smells like acetone, or it smells like algae and mushrooms, and it has horrible health effects, and I see how it's affecting people, and it all goes along with what's going on in the soils, the air samples now that we're seeing from Matthias, the water samples that we're taking, The dust samples that we've sent in are showing mercury. They're showing aluminum. They're showing barium. They're showing lead. They're showing arsenic. Where is all this stuff coming from? And here I am saying this to the world, to friends, family, and the public on internet radio in a situation where I could be ridiculed and have been. Of course, I don't care. I mean, I've grown a thick skin, and the people ridiculed are dead wrong, and one day they're going to really regret it, and they're going to pretend that they never started, being that way. But of course, that's going by the wayside. The only people who accuse us anymore are disinformationalists. But what they've done is they've created a culture where to believe me, to disbelieve me rather, is easy, because one of the conditioning factors that they've used come from movies like the show Prometheus. If anybody watched that Ridley Scott movie, okay, and it was a prequel to the big time science fiction thrillers Alien and Aliens, in Prometheus, they came in front of your face and they said this, and this is mind blowing, and people don't understand how profound this is, because this, what I'm about to tell you, is intimately woven into movie after show after movie after show. It's all over. And this is what they said. And this, they got so brave and they put it right out in front of your face, is that one of the scientists in Prometheus, and this was early on in the movie, well, it happened a couple times actually, he had a belief about a god or something, some higher force. And somebody asked the scientist and said, "Why do you believe that?" And he said something I'll never forget, because I've known that this was the philosophy of entitlement that they were preaching. He said, "Because I choose to." Why do you believe what you believe? Because I choose to. And the philosophy that is promoted in that movie and in show after show, don't care if you're watching Bones, which is one of the worst. That show is loaded with psychological. In fact, it is the most loaded show I've ever seen. House, which isn't in existence anymore, but House was one of the biggest shows of all time, had a lot of this in there, but not as much as Bones. And every show I've watched has it. Some very little, but most of them a medium amount, and a few, like Bones, are absolutely saturated with psychological devices. The idea that you can believe what you want because you choose to is an affront to all truth. And it is an affront to all truth for this reason. Because what we should be, because we've been given a brain that has a left hemisphere and a right hemisphere, we have the ability to discern logic. We should not allow ourselves to believe what we want to. Instead, we should be compelled to believe what the evidence shows us. Not say, "I believe this because I choose to." You have the right and the entitlement to believe whatever you want. And yes, you do, but there are grave consequences for it. And the consequences involve falling into the hands of a new world order. That is the ultimate end goal. Control, 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 control. But what we should do when we become mature, and I'm almost done, I'm sorry I'm going on and on, but what we should do is say, I'm making an observation. And my observation is, I'm coming full circle, is that I smell and taste chemtrails. I smell them, depending on the type and depending on the altitude, 30 minutes to 2 hours after they're sprayed. And I've measured this countless times. And these chemtrails burn, hurt, cause pain, and they change the behavior of children and adults. And metals and poisons are showing up in soils and water and dust tests. I could choose to believe that this isn't happening. But that is a fear-based, self-centered position. And I don't want to be fear-based. I will do everything in my power to not be fear-based and not be selfish. I have to believe what my senses tell me, and I have to be honest about it, no matter how ridiculous it sounds. And it doesn't really sound ridiculous in light of all the evidence we have, because we're surrounded by evidence. It only sounds ridiculous by those people who haven't even begun to look at the first evidence. That's what it's like any new paradigm. When you look at one piece of evidence that is outside of your current paradigm, it looks completely contrary to all logic, but it's only because you're not considering the entire picture. So the idea that you believe what you want to is an incredibly fear-based, self-centered position. Don't believe what you want, because you're entitled to it. and I'm not saying this in a dogmatic or painful or dictatorial way at all. Don't do it because the end of believing what you want for your own entitled reasons leads you down a path of destruction. It leads you down to a path of deceit. You will not understand what's going on in the world. Because you don't understand everything that's going on in the world, you will make bad decisions. Those bad decisions are going to lower your quality of life. They're going to cause harm. Like, for instance, you're going to go ahead and put amalgam fillings in your kids' teeth because you choose to believe your government's being honest with you, despite the fact that people are hollering and screaming all over the world, and firsthand witnesses such as myself are saying, don't. We have the evidence. But you won't even look at the evidence because you are entitled to believe whatever you want. And as long as you say, I'm going to believe what I want to rather than what logic dictates, we suffer, your children suffer, we all suffer. And the good news is, it doesn't have to be this way. We have to have the courage to say, I will examine the evidence even though I don't like it. I'm maybe afraid, but that's okay because I am courageous and I will face it. Then, when you start learning truth, your eyes are opened, you start seeing the world in a different way, and you start doing something great. You start gaining control over your life. You start gaining control over your health. You start gaining control over your own happiness, and your quality of life improves. And when your quality of life improves, the quality of the life of your neighbor improves as well, as long as you're having a relationship with your neighbor, which hopefully you are to some degree. So, that, I think, is how we facilitate a paradigm shift in the minds of those who often like to point at conspiracy theorists and say, you are paranoid, when really, they're the ones who are paranoid. They are the one, and I'm not saying this to be accusatory, it's the absolute truth. The unwillingness to face the evidence, regardless of how frightening it may be at first glance, in front of you, and to choose to accept a different reality that doesn't match the evidence, that is the basis for paranoia. We, those who are willing to face these truths that are difficult and scary, you are the courageous ones. And you have gone through the paradigm shift because you had the courage. You had the courage to face reality even when it was scary.
And that's courage. Courage is to have action even in the face of fear.
Right, exactly.
That's courage. It's not that we're never going to be afraid. It's that in spite, somebody catches you off guard, it's one of those things, which is why it's also good to practice sometimes, not to get yourself into fear, but, the best thing you can do to a criminal is surprise them, because they're not expecting it. What they have is an element of surprise when somebody attacks somebody type of thing. Well, believe me, who's going to be the most surprised person if the attackee turns it around real quick?
And
that always throws a crook for a loop if you can do it. And it's one of those like being prepared things. I heard a cop one time talk about that. About, people talk about being prepared. It's not a bad idea to do that whole thing kind of in your head so you'd have a clue so you're not totally surprised. But the thing is that I've heard Russ, you say that there's powers that be and companies and corporations and people that do all this research. They actually know it's better than we know ourselves. And, that document, Quiet Weapons for Silent Wars or Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars or whatever it is, they took an equation about electronics and they can put in the variables and come up with what people in the society will do. Well, again, for me, and one of the things with what's going on now is because we do have access to the internet, that it is important to do some research to find the information that helps whatever it is for people to know what they feel they need to know, because knowledge is empowering. And when you know what you know, you know. And nobody can take that away from you.
Oops. Sorry.
Anyway,
Well, and that is why these programs are secret. The people who keep secrets are the one who ultimately walk in fear. That's why they're secret, because they're afraid of the response of the public. The public has the power if they're willing to walk in unity and leave their fear behind and do what they believe that they need to do. If they're courageous enough to do that.
Hey, Russ?
Yeah.
Right. You go along that line. You look at the programming that's going on from, like you were saying, TV, commercials, or magazines, or Squirrel, or whatever. Right. I think there's a certain element with me at this point. I can fully understand why people shy away from the very things you were just talking about. And by the way, I think you just very much inspired an awful lot of people who are listening right now. You're at a level of having a tremendous responsibility to impart to those who are listening to you, and because you have the website, you've got these things. You're the one who controls the tools. That's very important for you. Not just to make it one thing or another or whatever. It's not political. It's not this, that, the other thing. You can't be bought. That's what I got out of what you just said. Many other things as well. But you have such conviction, and I'm with you on this whole thing. I just think that when I look at like a paradigm shift, I think you're hitting the nail on the head. I think everybody on this planet, I truly believe this, that we all have a level of intelligence that needs to be tapped and not destroyed. And those types of things are happening in our schools and our this and the other. It's not just in this country, it's worldwide. So if we could impart to people a few things along the lines of what you're saying, you don't have to fear anything. You know what I mean? You need to have confidence. You can do anything anybody else can. You just have to figure out what your passion is, right? That makes sense? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely makes sense. Are you there? I know you're trying to call in.
I don't know. Can anybody hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. I was making stupid noises just in case.
Oh, yeah, those noises were coming through, and I finally had to mute the call and say, what is going on with their phone?
Sorry about that.
The doot, 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 doot. That was you. Now there's a record of it forever.
Oh, no.
So what's going on?
Well, when you guys were talking about, fighting the fear and different things like that, it just brings back to home where people can sometimes have so many reasons for not going out and trying or not doing what they think that they could, or just I have a list. I mean, I literally have this list of all the reasons why I don't feel like doing anything today. And, like today was one of those days, well, the last 2-3 days has been pretty wicked, because right before the remnants of Andrea came up here, we were pummeled really hard with a harp. I was out taking pictures, and this guy was the most disgusting, I call it chem chowder, because we have clam chowder up here, so it's called chem chowder where I am. But so disgusting. It's like,
yes.
I'm just standing there, and I'm just completely free with taking pictures. I climbed on the roof of my Chevy Blazer, and I did not really give a damn if anyone thought I was crazy standing on the roof of my truck, pointing my camera at what they thought was probably nothing. But I did it anyway. I mean, I knew a certain time of day what parking lot I could go to without getting arrested for, who knows what they're going to come up with next. But so anyway, I got a ton of pictures of that, and it was just in my face. This is disgusting. This is real. This is happening. There's no questioning this. This does not look right to me. And I got excited about ideas of things I could do. And then all these different problems just started coming at me, like all the vehicle issues. Like my door literally in the middle of the storm fell off my truck in the pouring rain. Actually, that was the next day. The door
the door hinge broke, and the door hinge was locked open in the pouring rain that night. Torrential downpours. 10 o'clock at night, I'm in the driveway, holding my door up with my leg and my umbrella up on one side, trying to tell my 6-year-old, stay in the car, stay in the car.
Oh, no.
And so all this stuff is going on. I'm just, I'm frustrated about what's happening, but I'm getting angry at the same time. But what I'm doing that might be different than people that might want to get angry and give up is I'm turning the anger and I'm funneling it towards this issue. Like the next day, I was so PO'd at the torrential downpours that we got the night before that they caused from geoengineering. And I totally blamed my situation on that. Not all of it. I don't trust. What can I say? Things happen. We flopped the door open and things snapped off. Bang, the door was stuck open in the pouring rain. But we got the door to shut, and then the next day I was all cranked up about getting flyers out, and then I slammed the door shut and the pin fell out and the door fell completely off. All the way off, and I held it, shoved it back in, and locked it.
Wow.
Well, I talk about fear, discouragement, frustration, depression, you name it. It's all hitting me right in the face.
Well, please hang in there. I know you have done, and I wrote you an email, I think it was in an email. I said, you're a machine. I don't know how somebody does all the things that you do and holds up. I mean, you just never stop.
Well, what happens is I get so, bad in the term, but I get so pissed off because I'm sick of this going on because I'm trying to do all these different things, and I've got this weather situation that keeps stopping me.
Yeah.
I get frustrated, and I say to myself, well, this is what you have to do. All these bad things are happening in the last 3 days, I swear to God. The plans were, like, when we got some dry weather in between the geoengineering garbage that they were going to send over, the plans were to repair the mirror that had fallen, the side mirror that fell off the truck. I was going to get that all done. And then we were getting hit so bad with EMS, they're worse when it's raining, and with the heart, that I couldn't concentrate. My child couldn't concentrate. We were both a complete mess. And what had happened that night was because of this condition we were both in, I went to the store to go get something to calm everybody down, and that's when all the accidents started happening. I drove over a little median strip, popped the tire, then got home, had the tire filled out, got home, then the door fell off, and it just like, these kind of things happen when your brains are literally being scrambled like fried eggs.
Yeah.
And I decided if tomorrow is good, even though my door is going to fall off over the next pothole, who knows, and the mirror is probably going to fall off as soon as the rain starts coming down. I'm going to give these 20 flyers out one way or another. And that's what I ended up doing tonight. I got back from the garage, and they said, your tire's unrepairable. We need $150 for a new tire. I said, give my old tire back. I'm leaving. And I still had my camera, and I still had my flyers. So we decided on the way home that we would stop every 3 or 4 blocks, and we got out, and we stapled flyers on all the telephone poles.
Wow.
Oh, wonderful.
And we wore our Mardi Gras masks. We already had in the car. We planned on doing what I call a spontaneous flyer dispersal, which is at the drop of the hat, you call whoever, and you dress up in whatever you guys already agreed on would be the next one, and you just go out and you do it. We decided the next one was going to be Mardi Gras, so we already had our masks packed with our flyers. So we had our feathered, beaded, decorated mask and our beads and everything. I just ran to the telephone pole, tapped them up, took a picture, and ran back in the car and took off.
That is awesome. I know I thank you a lot, but thank you again. And is there anything that we can do to help? I mean, you need your door fixed or your tire? Is there, I mean, I guess.
I'm kind of in that boat now, trying to figure out, like, I'm trying to borrow money from my mom and different things. I mean, local awareness units is the only thing we've got to keep spreading the word. And we do our best as much as we can, but, I mean, at least I tried today before the rain is going to get here. We were at least out. Because I know the flyers that I have, they're all the paper. I don't know that they'll last in the rain that's coming, but as soon as it clears up, we're going to go do the same thing. We've got actually another person that wants to jump in. And there's another project I have planned, which is it's going to be a traffic stop situation where I'll have a pack of flyers with me. and a great big box of dollar store bubbles, and I'm just going to roll my window down, and I'm going to reach out the window and say, if you'll take this flyer on the back of your car right now, I'll give you these bubbles.
And what are you giving people?
Bubbles.
Bubbles?
Yeah.
Or like a jar of soapy water bubbles.
Yeah, just like kid bubbles. Like, well, it wouldn't work in traffic, but it would work better in parking lot situations because you would have
bubbles.
Oh, gotcha. Oh. You know, kind of like the little soapy stuff, and then the little loop that you blow through to make bubbles.
Right, the little loop thing, like the things that I get, like for wedding parties, you can buy a box.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was trying to figure out bubbles. What are like you can't give somebody a bubble, so you're talking about the bubble kit, like the little kit you make bubbles with.
Right, like the wedding packages. So I picked up a bunch of those for a get together we were going to have. It didn't work out. And then I figured, well, in parking lots, you could walk up to somebody with your flyer and a roll of tape and your bubbles and say, hey, if you'll hang this on your car until the next time it rains, I'll give you these bubbles. And they're not going to say no because you're so happy and they've got bubbles. They're like, this is all good. This is all like, I'm going to say yes to this person.
That is great.
And we're two cars that the door falls off in the middle of the street. You have a good time to do bubbles.
Well, I go up the other door.
Well, we need to.
There's any opportunity is how I look at it. Like, what makes best of it? And at least, with what was going on, it's not just you weren't just being moody, I mean, and nobody'd feel well. You're getting harped to high heaven, and and you're buzzing, and whatever happens with all the microwave digital stuff all around us, and it's actually a perfectly normal feeling that, like we were saying earlier, that everybody else just wants to tell you it's not really there, not really happening. It's not reality. But it is reality.
Oh, yeah, and we shouldn't have gone out that night, but that night they were getting us so bad. My child is really sensitive, and she was so out of control. She went from tantrums, and then once we got away from where we are, we got away. There's a big tower on our hill, and I think that we're probably a little too close. Once we got away from there, the tantrum stopped, but then it turned into crying spells. And she's already been evaluated, like, over the last few years. There was no mental illness. There's nothing going on. She's only highly empathic or highly sensitive. That's it. But as soon as we got away from the tower, she wasn't as bad. But nonetheless, it went from the tantrum to sobbing and then to happy chatter.
Know that Barry Trower's data, right, about children and wireless?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
It only takes 2 minutes.
Quite a bit about
that. It brains for the next 2 hours.
It does. The EMFs are real strong. I remember Dane was talking about that on a couple of weeks ago show. And I think that's what was getting us so bad. I thought I've got to go. It felt like we were in an emergency, and then all these crazy things happened. And the thing is, I just look at it like this. My tire's flat. My door fell off. The mirror's going to fall off once the rain gets underneath that duct tape I've got on there. But I've seen what I think is our future. I've had horrible dreams of what could actually come. That's worse for me than what I went through in the last 3 days. So if I have the strength to get through all of this, and sure be going out in my backyard and seeing, B-71s going over or whatever, it does beat that. It beats going to the store and being told, martial law, get back in your house, and all these crazy things that could be in our future if we don't shut this crap down now. I guess what I'm doing is I'm looking at the bigger picture. I can maybe whine a little bit and moan a little bit about the little bullshit that happens on a small scale, but I do keep on seeing that possible future, and we have the ability to change it. I just won't let fear stop me. It's not going to happen.
And one of the ways to avoid that fear is also to be prepared, just in case they have the water, the food, and your mom. So, that's probably even more important. And, and the reality is there's things, not the big picture. I was going to say, if you're in my area, you wouldn't see the B-52s. They'll be behind the damn clouds that aren't real. But you'll hear a believe me, I hear them all the time, whatever they are. And but you know, when we try to prepare, but the thing is, the reality is, the last few days, what's happening. I actually was watching the Jesse Ventura thing, and it was about targeted individuals in Gwen, and I'm like, see, and look at those poor people.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I actually, when I started waking up about this, it was because I was sitting here in my bedroom vibrating. And I called Pepco and said, okay, can I ask you something to the lady? I said, this is going to sound weird. And she said, oh, no, that doesn't sound weird. Those are all symptoms of being exposed to high voltage. And I'm the one person, they don't argue about my smart meter. I got a sign on it that says, don't touch. So, well, bless your heart, because that's tough. That's, you know, and the reality is, I mean, at least nobody's saying that it didn't happen, but on top of the stressful stuff, the physical effects of dealing with the physical effects, it's, you know, when I was talking to Russ earlier, I right before that, I was thinking about the frog in the boiling pot. And it's part of the whole dumbing down that we've all gone through, in a way, because nobody throws in the pot of boiling water. It's just gotten warmer and warmer. And for the people that when you try to, you know, and I figure it takes 10 people for somebody to get a message anyway. But they're in that pot. Oh, yeah. And they're feeling good in that nice hot tub. That's right. Wait till you start buzzing and vibrating. There comes a time when it doesn't feel so good anymore.
Yeah. True.
You know? And what's neat is just like other things. You know, when we share stuff, those will be the people that hopefully will wake up before they get to that point. Because like Russ was saying, you can do something in love or hate and fear. When we take the risk, and it's risky for anybody, and some people are a lot harder to do, when we take the risk to reach out to speak to somebody, like the woman at the pharmacy last week, I got a negative one, but I'm like, oh, good, I have this challenge, you know, and I just, you know, I figure, well, I can learn something here, and be polite, and still maybe educate a little bit. Turn on the ball.
Well, part of my deal is I've been part of Pay It Forward. It's an organization that was nationwide, but now it's worldwide, and it has to do with karma, and it has to do with empathy. Those are the two strongest things, and those are some skills that I feel like I have that I can bring to this cause, because, you know, when people they give their descriptions of the physical symptoms and side effects that they deal with, like Ann from Oregon, I know she gets really severe, a lot of electric issues, radiation, or whatever it is, but she gets serious headaches, and, you know, and it breaks my heart to hear people do that, and I'm thinking, if I'm having a bad day, I could be sick to my stomach, I could have a massive headache, I might not be able to concentrate on a thing, I might have to constantly write myself notes just to physically get myself out the door with everything I'm meant to, but it could be worse. It is worse for someone. And I don't want it to get worse for me. I don't want it to get worse for my daughter. And that's why I do want to fight harder and harder and harder. Because some people might call this precognitive, or precognition, or dreams, or whatever. But I've had many, many dreams over the years, and everything that I've dreamt of has actually somewhat come true, and the rest of it hasn't yet. I don't want to see those things happen because they were horrifying. Some of the things that I remember seeing. And the biggest thing I remember from all those horrifying dreams were the planes. That was like the one thing that stuck in my mind was the planes. Dozens and dozens and dozens of them going overhead. And the black skies, and the yelling down the street, martial law in your house, and all this stuff. According to a lot of people who are trying to forecast what could happen if this gets worse, those are all possibilities. I don't want that to be a possibility in my future. So if my vehicle's breaking down and I'm on my way home, and if I don't even know if I'll make it, I'm probably going to make it, but if I can at least shout out about 10 or 15 flyers on telephone poles and make a goofy face with a fun Mardi Gras mask, I'll go for it, as long as I get home safe. I'm hoping maybe, what if I reach somebody else that has a good situation that'll rip that flyer down and go photocopy it and do the same thing I did? Could happen.
That's right. That's right. And the people that you meet, that you make a connection with. And today, you know, when you look, and I don't go out very often because I can't be around all the fragrances and fumes and stuff, but people just seem extremely disconnected from each other. It's almost like, because this has been going on for me for 2 years since I've had my brain fried. But I see a difference, and I see, I'm sure everybody in the grocery store is like, how much groceries can I get for that money? But on top of that, people don't look at each other and talk to each other very much. So we're becoming even more fragmented and disconnected in some ways. But when you do reach out and you say, hey, how you doing? Or tell the guy with the couple and they have a brand new baby, and I said, if you want to continue to have more of this, I probably wouldn't put that cell phone on my belt if I were you. It's a real conversation breaker. We just started talking, and, so. Because I said it laughingly and said, I probably wouldn't be wearing that on my belt. And then he was like, what? And I said, well, yeah, and, or it probably wouldn't be a good idea to use a wireless baby monitor around the baby either, because it actually, causes problems. And, and people are open, but because I think that people are so disconnected in so many ways. And they're busy and they're fried and they don't look up. And I'm like, when you go out, look up. There's the trail right over the store when I came in. And there was. Clear as day that night. What's your name? Kim. Kim? I'll remember your truck. I keep a roll of duct tape in there.
I do. I have one in the back seat.
Yep, and a stick.
And it's good.
Tape and a stick.
It's ugly.
You can get to work, but a stick and a duct tape will hold a mirror for a while.
Oh, yeah. Well, we went to the Lakeville GMO protest up in our state capitol last week, and the duct tape started peeling off on the highway on the way home. And I was like, I made it. I don't care. So off, you rotten rat.
And if we get really lucky, we might meet some nice DHS officer that we can make friends with, and we can have ride home, make a friend, and we'll be safe. No? I have a friend, and she's actually saying, well, these people are in my neighborhood, and I said, why would I be being nice? Maybe they want some cookies or something.
Yeah.
I want them on my side. I want them to know this is where I am, and if I need some help, will you please come help me?
Hey, karma. I hate into karma so much.
Relationship now, well, everything's cool.
If it comes back, I'll be glad.
Yes, and be friendly, but just be nice. People are much nicer to people they've already met and you've established, neighborliness with.
That's true.
It works. Seems to work.
Oh, gosh. It looks like my pain in the Bunsky golden retriever is bugging me. He wants attention. I think he needs to get back out. I'll have to hang up with you guys for right now. I've got pictures posted on the Facebook group, but I'll put them up on Global Skywatch, too, just to show you guys what we did today. We had some fun during our despair. Awareness spreading is fun. Don't forget that.
I think that's so neat. And look what a lesson you taught your daughter.
Oh, yeah.
Because that in spite of obstacles, you still did what you set out to do.
We did.
What a lesson.
We will pay it forward whenever we can. We've done things like gone over to school canceled, work canceled, the whole state shut down. We went over to the Humane Society, and we dressed up in all our snowsuits and boots and hats, you name it, and we walked every single dog in the whole entire building. Every one of them.
What a nice day there.
All day. Life is short. You know, I mean, I could just walk across the street to the store and be boned by a Mack truck. Who knows? You can't look at life like it's well, it's kind of expendable, but you have to live each day as you have it and make the best that you've got. Yeah. And if you keep paying into karma, eventually it'll pay you back, but don't wait for it. Don't look for it. That's the way I have to go.
Kim, it was nice to meet you, and I hope tomorrow is even better with us. Let's rain anyway.
Don't go, Kim.
Blow out from here. We've had enough today, too.
Well, good night. Good night, Lynn. Good night, Dan. Good night, Helen and Russ. And I don't know if Faye's still there or not. I think she headed out earlier.
Well, it's been great to listen and hear from you again, Kim. And just what a wonderful attitude. Just get out there. You're just amazing. Make the best of adversity and turn it into good. And I think that's the best thing we can do to get back at these evil forces that seem to want to, because it's interesting you were saying how you were having all that malaise there of all these things happening. I've wondered myself in this past year that I've had so many strange things, and I've thought that maybe somehow these evil forces are trying their very hardest, the people that they know are good people, that they're throwing everything they can at us to try and make our lives miserable
I've heard the
karma.
same thing.
And then, we just have to keep on, going in spite of it and keep a happy, loving attitude, just as you are doing, and that's the best we can do to shun that. So
I've heard that same thing. I've heard it from all different people with different backgrounds, different beliefs. They feel that the harder and the stronger and the more enlightened you are, you actually will have a glow, and you'll have there'll be something about you that'll draw the negative energy to you, and they'll want to stop you. And the thing is, no matter how many candles you blow out, it doesn't make your light shine any brighter. So they can be bullies all they want, and they can try to stomp a strong person down, but they'll never win. Light always overshines the darkness.
that's right.
And I think that there are, whether it's spiritual forces or whether it's intelligent human forces that are wreaking havoc on those that are making change. Either way, bring it. I'll stand up every time.
There you go. Very, very excellent words of wisdom from you tonight, Carol. Well, I guess I'm going to sign off.
Hey, guys.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yep.
Did we lose Dan?
He probably accidentally dropped his call. Give him a couple minutes to get back in.
Hello?
Yeah, he just accidentally hung up.
Yes, hello. Did someone trying to enter the call? Hello?
Yep, you might have to call back. My dog's got to go potty. I gave him a quarter of a cannabis oatmeal cookie. And I started him on antibiotics, so he's barking at the bathroom. I'll be on chat for a minute, but I got to do him outside. It was sure good talking with you, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep, well, we'll hopefully hear from you again next week.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night, my love. Bye.
Hi, Kim.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, Helen, it was good to hear you tonight. I always enjoy hearing you.
Well, likewise. We have such a wonderful group of core people here, don't we? I'm sure we have many others that we haven't even heard from yet. But
Hey, is that Helen?
yes.
Hey, Helen, my phone just cut off. I was talking to you guys. Before you leave, would you answer what I was asking if you heard me?
Well, I didn't hear. Your call kind of got cut off.
It was totally cut off. Okay.
Yeah, you
Well,
just started to
well,
say, hey guys, you know, and then...
When did you come on the call? Early on, or did you come in like midstream, or what?
No, I've been on since just about the beginning.
Well, any of you guys who are still out there, you know, when he first came on the phone, when Russ was talking to him, I got the impression that he was saying the only thing he believed in was persistent contrails. He made a very big initial foray into not believing chemtrails were real. That was my impression. Did you guys get that impression?
You weren't from the very beginning, because Russ had done a little bit of clarifying.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't get that.
That wasn't the only thing I picked up on, but I try to be polite. I'm not, you know.
Well, even more so.
I did very subtly say what I had to say about I don't trust everybody.
Well, which makes sense, right? Nobody should.
But it's about the call. What is that general statement? There were a couple things that my antenna was going off during the thing. In fact, I actually thought that Russ was swimming. You know, my first thought was over the Alps. The Alps are awfully high. There's not a lot of oxygen up there. I mean, so that right there, you wouldn't be in an open plain up above the Alps. What's the altitude above the Alps? I have family from Switzerland.
I don't think he was in an open plain, or maybe...
No, and he talked about that later. I don't know. I'm not worrying about it.
A bit of an
I actually thought about asking, well, where are the equations and things? But I know where there are equations and things. So, and I never want to do anything to disrupt, you know. I would never criticize again. I wouldn't want to ever do that. I mean, you'd have to be flaming for me to come right out. But I was
pretty well screened these people, and he said he had spoken with him at length. So, I mean, you know, Russ is no dummy, so...
No, but you know, no, not at all. He's perfect. And I think that it actually is the thing, because one of the things that what I'm finding, there are a lot of people out there who actually play that they're the agreeable people, but then when you start talking to them, that's not really the case. And it's like a wheedling, cause dissension, cause problems within a group, question things, and just be a total distraction to deflect from the purpose.
I don't think it. You know, I think that he used that. The man is from Europe.
Oh, I'm not saying he did that. I didn't say he did that, but I have experienced that.
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying about him. He's from Europe. You know, which they probably have different terms. He did come over here. He spoke with Rosalind Peterson, who apparently, refers to them as persistent contrails in her talk that she gives, as well as talking about them as chemtrails. I've listened to a number of her talks online, and I've actually spoken with her personally on a few occasions. But, you know, I think that was just his terminology. And I don't think we ought to let ourselves get hung up in the small stuff like that and being, you know, critical of someone's intention. They just may have a different, just set of, I don't know, I'm not exactly sure what, I know what I actually said,
know, and I figured it was also 2:30 in the morning for the poor guy.
Yeah,
I wouldn't do that well, and different accent and language. So yeah, I understood all of that.
He seemed to me to be genuine. So in his intention. But there again, I've been taken in for a fool on a number of occasions throughout my life. So who am I to judge? You know. But I do know Russ is a good judge of character, and I certainly, think that Russ mentioned he had spoken with him at length, before having him on the call. So, I think it, sounds like a very interesting film, and I hope, I look forward to seeing it when it does come out.
I'm actually really good at picking up discrepancies with what people say sometimes if I'm paying attention. And in fact, one of the guests that has been here, and I'm pretty sure I know what he said, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. And he actually has written an article that says the opposite of what he said. But I wasn't going to, that's something, again, it's not like I would say something like that on, a program. Because it's not about negativity. It's about, because anything that sometimes pretty much, even the negative when you have somebody a good host like Russ, even if there was a negative, and I'm not saying that was, but even if there was, a lot of times it can end up working out really well because it actually, in fact, sometimes she'll even get more people coming if they know there's a little drama going on. They'll all call their friends and say, oh, you got to come on and listen to this. And, and you'll end up with a bigger audience of people who may not have heard the message. And the message, it just turns around into being what it was supposed to be anyway.
There you go.
It all has a way of working out. But I actually, but part of it could have just been very tired. But and I'm not a scientist, but I would have thought that somebody who was doing that would have been more on top of the expertise of the subject and the science behind it a little bit, not the Tesla or something or whatever, or the National Weatherman, but I heard some hesitation. That was all. I don't know what it was about, and again, it could be language, culture. I understand that.
Yeah.
I was grateful for the call because I did learn a lot.
Yeah, I try to give everyone the benefit, and eventually their intentions will be made clear, as time goes on. So, well, anyway, I am going to say goodnight because it's very, very late, and I had another really busy day, but it's been another enjoyable call, and nice to talk with everybody. So,
did you get a lot of rain from the hurricane?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess we did. This has been one of our wettest springs on record. We've had so much rain. I guess we're getting all of California's rain, and I guess they funneled this up from, the Caribbean and the Gulf and just sort of funneled that last hurricane right out into the Atlantic. So, we've had plenty of rain here, which we're grateful for. It's just I'm not quite sure how much toxic material is in the rain since I haven't sent my water tests off yet to be sampled. So,
my yard feels like a sponge, but I think that rain came from, I don't know, maybe about 10 miles away. I don't know where they made this rain.
Well, what we had came from wherever that little hurricane was that, was generated down there below the Gulf, and then normally they would just sort of go across the Gulf and, into the Louisiana, Texas area, but this one just sort of went up across the, Florida panhandle or whatever you call it, and kind of skirted South Georgia and went, up the eastern coast there out to the Atlantic. So that was a little unusual. Not that hurricanes have not taken that track before, but someone else I had listened to or read this somewhere or something had mentioned because of the Gulf oil spill, which many believe that in itself was intentionally done, and all that horrendous correctives that they sprayed out in the Gulf, that they don't want any more big hurricanes to carry the waters, with all that corrected up into Louisiana, Texas, or whatever. So it'll be interesting.
It's already gone up the Gulf Stream. It's gone up the East Coast. Nothing's still leaking.
Well, that's
They
what I'm
practice
saying.
before. They don't, the Air Force or whoever, Coast Guard, they won't allow flyovers.
Yeah, I've heard that, you know. So, I mean, I don't have any way to verify that if that's true, since I can't get in a plane and fly over it or, you know, go out there or whatever.
YouTube, you can just do a search. You can find YouTube videos and news. Usually Lady Pink could do the news. What is that? ENE News or EWE News?
I don't
They
know.
usually report on that. But be careful. You know, people end up not long for this world to get involved with that BP oil spill.
Well, like I say, I'm not a good enough researcher, and I'm not all that good on the computer, so, you know, I leave that to experts and people that are much more adept at that than I. So, but I have heard that they don't want to, you know, have that go in to the to inland anymore. So it will be interesting to see if this hurricane season, all of our hurricanes go out to the Atlantic, won't it? We'll know if that's the case.
The salt dome collapse, they believe, is directly related to the Gulf oil spill.
The what?
The salt dome collapse.
Yeah.
In Biocorn. But they actually, I heard an interview that about Simmons did with Rick Wiles a couple weeks before he died, and it had to do with the Corexic and all of that stuff. But one of the things is they may have actually fractured the sea floor.
Wow.
And if that's the case, they can't fix it. So they may still be just pumping out Corexic. And what that would mean is that it has traveled up the East Coast and it's going to heat up the Arctic. It'll melt the ice.
Yeah. Well, Dane has talked a little something about that too. How the currents, you know, are going up the Atlantic.
The Arctic. I mean, the giveaway to me was, well, how many bottles of Whiteout did they need for Google Earth? I mean, because all they do is take Whiteout and make snow. And, you know, and I found a way to kind of go in at an angle and get underneath of it and look. And I'm like, okay, where's the snow? So I looked at some videos that the scientists have done. And, but the good news, it's like, well, all that Earth Day we bought, you know, our hairspray and Kim's deodorant and our car exhaust caused all this problem. It's not what we did.
No,
we're not the ones that melted the Antarctic.
Of course it isn't. This is so much worse. And it's
Speaking of which, and then you have everybody who's going to get on the, you know, sustainable energy bandwagon and Agenda 21. They're actually rezoning my neighborhood. But I looked at the code. Besides the fact that you can't have chickens less than 100 feet from your house, I mean, we don't live on that big a property. Where are they supposed to go? But on top of that, the solar collectors, and they input a typo in the printout of the PDF. So it's not obvious. It you know, one of those intentional mistakes. If you have a solar collector, number one, you may not trim a branch to a tree where you're going to put the solar collector. You can't trim a tree or anything, and you have to have a permit before you do it. And you may use it for no more than 20% of your total energy needs.
Yeah, I've heard about that. The 20% thing.
I'm like, it's ridiculous. It's a setup because the things aren't cheap to begin with.
Yeah.
And you can't have it so high, and you can't put it here, and then you can't trim a tree limb. I'm like, we don't have hardly any sun anyway. I don't know how this thing's going to work so well.
Well, maybe we can get Dr. Keshe from the Keshe Foundation going, and if we can get this gravity-driven energy, you know, and get people, you know, there's something to that, and we can get that out there, then, you know, we can put the electric companies out of business for good, and we'll just use.
I don't think they're going to let you do that. I think that's what this is all about.
Well, you know what? If we all learn how to make those, and we can, if it's something we can make ourselves, and we can get the information out to people, and millions and millions of people just make these. I don't know how they would stop us, but I'm sure they'll try their darndest.
The guy who's head of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission was on C-SPAN. I'm listening to Yahoo last week. And actually, when you charge your electric car in the driveway, they'll buy some of that energy back for you. Now, and it's like you're not supposed to use your power at certain times. But, you'll still be paying for it, but that's okay because people want to give to their community. I'm like, no, you're wrong. I don't want to pay for the grid power. I'll pay for my power. And I don't want to feed every kid in my state breakfast either. They're not my kids.
I know it. It's just ridiculous.
But it's like, in fact, there's a meeting tomorrow night, and I can't be around perfumey people, and I'm not signing up ahead of time because I will slide my comment in there about, and I worked at the college that says they're not you. I'm actually going to say to people, wait. I don't think this would be a good time to vote on changing any zoning boundaries, which isn't my problem so much as the fact that there's code in here that has changed. And with this economy, I think that maybe we all need to take a copy of this home and read it, because you may need to have some chickens in your yard, and you may need a solar collector. And the fact that we have no privacy and what happened to our inalienable rights, maybe we should take a look at this before we just turn all of our property rights stuff over without reading this. It'd be like the Affordable Health Care Plan that everybody in my state believes in. So,
yeah, it's like we have to pass it so you can know what's in it.
That was a conversation I had with a woman in the grocery store last week that did not go over well. Because I said, unless you're a woman 55 or 60, because you're just getting lied to, you're not getting good health care. And she said, oh, that's not true. It's great. And I said, well, I would suggest you go home and do some research real quick. I said, because affordable health care is going to cost you a minimum of $4,000 a year, and you're not going to get the care you're used to getting, I can promise you.
So, just wait till you get sick. You may be getting great health care now that you're not sick, but, plan not to get sick for the rest of your life.
In the grocery store, and she's overweight and might have a stroke if she doesn't get her prescription. And but no, Democrat believes Obama and Pelosi. I'm in Maryland, like.
I know.
I guess everybody's a Democrat.
Really useless.
I'm sorry for you to live up there, in that hotbed of ignoramus liberals, but it's terrible, But I'm sure there are some.
Well, they cured me. I told them, I said, look, you know what? Y'all managed to cure me. All these years, I just can't believe it. You turned me into a Republican.
Well, not that they're great either. They're the Republican establishment is just as corrupt, but
factions are.
Yeah,
factions are right.
It's the left-right paradigm. We've got this great gal that's a libertarian that does a Sunday talk show, and I like to listen to her. She's And the more you hear of it, when I've listened to G. Edward Griffin's talks, it's definitely true. They use both sides. They play both sides against the middle to just keep us off balance and advance their agenda. So
that whole Hellesian dialect or something.
Yeah.
I actually don't care what the party is. There's right and there's wrong.
Amen. Amen. And we'd be in such a better shape if people would look at that and come together and just ignore, like Herman Cain often says, let's just stop labeling everybody and everything, and just let's look at policy. and not the
But
label.
yeah, you have to look though what's going on with all the younger generations, because it's all about the melting pot and coming to group consensus. And that actually can end up being so much more dangerous.
Yeah, well, Dr. Michael Savage coined it right. This is one of his sayings, and it's fabulous. From the melting pot to the chamber pot. And I hate to say it, but, you know, it looks like that's the direction the good old U.S. of A. has been going for quite some time now. At least probably the last 30 years.
It just looks like the people that used to be the conservatives are now labeled the radicals. For nothing, you know, it's like just shake it all up and it all just, whatever was believed. That doesn't even bother me because I was never into politics.
Yeah, I really wasn't either. It's funny how you get older and you kind of get forced into it. I think, you know, a lot of people when they're younger, or, you know, you're just busy living your life and going to school, starting your career, starting a family. You know, it just seems like a natural thing. You're not really following politics all that much, and then eventually you realize how much politics is affecting your life, and you just kind of go, oh, maybe I better pay attention to this.
I literally woke up in July and went, oh my God, what happened to the world? I mean, it was like I had brain damage and woke up and went, oh my God, what's going on here?
Yeah.
It all happened like that without staying in Colorado. My husband was really into politics, and when it came to like disability rights stuff, fighting to pass the ADA and that kind of stuff, I was involved in that. But and probably always disability rights, but not so much with politics. And then I'm sitting here looking at my state and watching my wonderful senators, the one who slides these sneaky gun control bills in on Thursday nights, and I'm like, well, I knew I was in my state because remember, I work where they're not the government, but it's the government versus me. And the only thing that I don't have the brain cells to fight these people. I mean, I don't follow through. I have trouble. I mean, I've been telling doctors that.
You sound pretty smart when you talk to us.
I can talk to anybody, but I won't get anything else done while I'm doing it. So, and I can't find any papers or my bills, and I'm an office manager. I'm usually I'm highly organized. You know, it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago now. I mean, I haven't gotten paid since last August. Not good.
No?
What to do? All right, I'm going to go to sleep. Tomorrow is another day.
Yeah. Well, listen, we'll talk to everybody next week. God bless.
Night, night.
Good night, Dan. Good night.